Hello, my name's Claire Simpson and I am the forum lead at BioPhorum for our Technology Roadmapping collaboration group. And I'd like to follow on from what Dan was speaking to you about by telling you a little bit more about our particular forum, the work we do, and also provide you with an example of one of our working groups by telling you about our plug and play collaboration, the work they're doing to develop out proof of concepts in our Plugfest series. As Dan said, Technology Roadmapping is one of 8 forum collaboration communities here at BioPhorum, and Technology Roadmapping is the strategy arm of our collaboration. We are seeking to look out on a 10-year plus time horizon to map the technologies and the processes of the future, and in particular accelerate our journey towards our vision of the future that our members have defined. And along the way, we work with all of our sister forums to make sure that the long-term visionary work that's happening within our own collaboration dovetails and fits in with the short to medium work that is happening in our manufacturing forums. The mission of the Technology Roadmapping Forum has always been around helping to build industry consensus around technology strategy in order to define and address the issues that we see within the industry, particularly around reducing risk and accelerating our use and development of technology. In 2020, our members took a look at our mission and redefined that as not just the strategy piece, but also around the importance of leading innovative collaboration teams that help accelerate the creation and adoption of new technologies, particularly with a view to build that same consensus around the needs and requirements of our business and process challenges. And later on, I'll give you an example of our plug and play team and how they've been doing exactly that. Technology Roadmapping was formed in 2015 out of the realisation that there were certain bottlenecks within our industry that required a little bit more strategic thinking in order to accelerate through. And in 2017, what we refer to now as our first edition of the Technology Roadmaps was published. The first edition contained a vision of the future that was defined using a biosolve model, and also 6 enabling technology chapters that spun from process technologies through analytical technologies, and then considered things like knowledge management, modular facility design, and smart supply chains. Following publication of those roadmaps, the community very quickly identified priorities based on the recommendations in the roadmaps, and started to pull together a plan to build a sustainable programme that could really address those high priority ticket items that are of value to the industry. And in 2019, we saw proof of concepts and technology demonstrators start to launch, following a host of work on things like collaborative user requirement specifications and standards proposals. In the meantime, in 2019, we also published our 7th roadmap chapter on continuous downstream processing, looking at both the technology, the regulatory and the automation challenges around working in a continuous environment. And in 2021, we are publishing just this month our revised roadmap vision, which looks back on the last 5 years of our journey, reflects on how far we've come, and repositions our vision and our objectives for the next 10-year phase of our industry future. In amongst all of that, we are also working on an 8th chapter on digital technologies, and this will be the first of our new generation of chapters, which looks to address industry challenges and technology recommendations on a more holistic basis. Our community, as Dan described, is diverse and global, and for Technology Roadmapping, it is made up of both end users and our key industry supplier partners working together to accelerate technology strategy. And our members tell us that this partnership between both segments of the industry is critical to being able to both define and think about solutions to those technology challenges. You can see here some pictures of our members hard at work during some of our face-to-face meetings. And for our wider group, these face-to-face meetings typically happen twice a year. And during our virtual environment, we have been holding monthly workshops for our members to continue the great work and build momentum in the strategy processes that they're developing. And our members tell us that it's critical that end users and supply partners across a number of segments are able to work together to define not just the challenges and requirements of the future, but also start to think about the technology solutions. The slide that's just popped up on your screen is the Technology Roadmap Vision as reissued for 2021. And I'm going to step you through it quickly over the next 5 minutes so that you can understand the breadth of the challenge that our members are voicing to us and the size of the scope of work that we are working on. The light blue layer at the top of the diagram is the market drivers and business trends that are important to our members. And I'm sure there's nothing in that top layer that particularly surprises you as being important. It's things that we all feel all the time in our industry. Patients are deliberately put at the front of the driver's flow. Patients drive our product design and the growth of our market. Our product design drives complexity, brings us to thinking about new product modalities. And of course, in our current environment, it's not just monoclonal antibodies that are important, but also cell therapies, CAR T cells, and of course, vaccines and the developing mRNA production scenarios. Products then drive that pace of change, and we've all seen acceleration through the last 18 months, particularly in the digital area, and our members are very conscious of the need to learn from the technology implementations that have needed to happen over the past 18 months so that we can build on that for the future. And of course, that pace of change drives performance and delivery. And so our members are keen to apply technology strategy to smart supply chains, operational delivery, and security of supply. And this is the area in particular where we work very much with our operational sister forums. Underneath that process flow, you can see 5 words there, and those are our 5 key metrics areas. Our members are working on defining what we call key performance indicators for industry strategy, and they are speed, quality, value, agility, and added for 2021 this key area of sustainability, which is a real focus for many of our members. As we move down the slide then into the orange area, this is defining the scope envelope of the road mapping programme. Our first edition programme really considered drug substance manufacture and looked at some very, very clearly defined drug substance manufacturing scenarios that allowed our members to test their strategy ideas and see how they mapped onto real life operations. For this second edition work and the next phase of our collaboration, our members have chosen to define a technology scope envelope, which starts off with the inputs into the process, considers inbound raw materials and consumables, takes us through drug substance manufacture, both upstream and downstream, and into drug product manufacture through packing and product ready to distribute. This means we have a really broad scope, and within that we need to recognise a number of different process types, from a batch process all the way through to a fully continuous process. We need to recognise a range of different scale types, ranging from single patient CAR T cell batches all the way through to 8 billion mRNA vaccines, industrial manufacture of monoclonal antibodies, and everything through development into commercial in between. And also a range of different containment types as we consider what's best for both our products and our patients and the geographies we're manufacturing in. Finally, on the third layer of our diagram, we have the key areas of activity of our forum, and this is where the roadmap chapters themselves sit. The first of our 3 areas is bioprocess science. This is where we think about the key technologies for creating our products, the biochemistry behind them, the chemistry behind them, and what happens within our bioreactors. The second area for collaboration is bioprocess technology, and this is where traditionally most of our focus has been for technology road mapping. This includes thinking about the physical equipment, our process technologies, whether they're for batch technologies or continuous technology design of our facilities in modular and mobile, automation, so thinking about automated facilities, the hardware, the software and the robotics behind those, and how our engineering solutions enable movement around a facility, and also inline monitoring real-time release and how the analytics of the future can support that. Our third bucket then is bioprocess governance, and this is a new bucket that we have added, recognising that when we look at a holistic biomanufacturing process, there are some things in terms of technology needs that will sit above the process itself. Things like data demands, regulatory needs, quality needs, application of smart tools and Pharma 4.0. And our digital roadmap that we are currently working on will be the first of our new generation of bioprocess governance roadmaps that reflects on the entirety of the manufacturing scenario we've described on this slide. That digital roadmap will describe a digital vision that drives and supports the technology objectives for both current and future biomanufacturing, looking again at that 10-year time horizon and describing what the digital capabilities of the future will need to look like in order to enable those processes that we're expecting in our new facilities. The team are working on a roadmap that will both address the barriers and hurdles to implementation, but also consider the business cases and the benefits of digital capabilities within a biomanufacturing facility, and think about the challenges of adoption and what that might look like. And we're expecting publication of that roadmap later on in 2021. Our groups are also recognising that definition and piloting of new technologies is not the end of the story, and that there is a need for us to collaborate on good practice for adoption of new technologies, asking the question, how do we take those technologies once they are ready, once they've reached a high enough technology readiness level, and make sure we're implementing them in good time into our facilities. So our team on best practice in adoption of new technologies is sharing case studies on how our members do this. They are enabling sharing of stories, sharing of knowledge, and also creating an online framework for a series of tools and resources for our members to use on technology adoption. So that really describes the road mapping and strategy half of our portfolio of activities. And what I'd like to do now is describe to you how that roadmap and vision defines what we do within our technology acceleration portfolio. Each of our roadmaps within the three areas that I've described identifies a number of key recommendations. You can see in the green boxes on the screen the titles of the roadmaps, and in between them they contain around 250 different recommendations for the future. And typically when a roadmap is published, our members will prioritise the needs that have been described, both from an industry perspective, a technology perspective, and also from their own corporate perspective, so that we can arrive at a good consensus of what's really important to our members to collaborate on. Out of that comes our technology acceleration and adoption workstream portfolio, and each of those work streams in the dark blue at the bottom of the screen is working on something that has been identified in one or more of our technology roadmaps, with the objective of moving the needle against those key performance indicators that I mentioned earlier. By way of an example, our buffer preparation proof of concept in conjunction with Nimble in the United States has built an inline buffer preparation skid that seeks to drastically reduce the footprint of our buffer preparation needs, but also really speed up the process as well and integrate it inline into the downstream process. And the results of that proof of concept are expected to be published this fall. Other work streams are working on consensus requirements for new technologies and standardised ways of working. So, as another example, our Standard Facility Design Group has published some recommendations on standardised design methodologies for modular facilities. They've tested that out in monoclonal antibody facilities, and they're currently working on testing that again when thinking about viral vector facilities to apply it to a new area. So we have a broad spectrum of work spanning from process technologies through to data and analytics, and covering different activities from white papers, requirement specifications, and physical proof of concepts. Those proof of concepts are now starting to drive collaborative technology development across our members, and they bring our members a number of benefits in many different ways. They reduce risk for our members by allowing folks to define and scope activities in a collaborative environment with their peers, and access a number of R&D areas for a relatively low cost as part of a group. They also allow our members to accelerate the journey towards some of those deliverables by accessing a much larger team of subject matter experts from across the industry. A great example of this is the plug and play team that I'll tell you about shortly, where a number of the SMEs coming together are drawn not just from our biomanufacturer members, but also from our automation and process orchestration layer members, who are all pooling their expertise together to reach a common goal. Our proof of concepts are all designed to create pooled data sets that are available at the end of the work for open source industry access. And the advantage for our members is in early access to that data, but also in being able to steer it and test it out on their own process maps, as well as being able to access one voice discussion with regulators so that we can present the industry view to our regulatory partners and agencies. Our proof of concepts also take the time to explore the business cases behind the technology adoption that they're scoping out. And so, for example, our buffer preparation proof of concept has been able to use the BioSolve tool to really demonstrate the power of the technology that they have been testing. And you can see at the bottom of this slide here 4 examples of our proof of concept programme. I'd now like to tell you a little bit more about one particular of our work streams, and I'll describe how it was identified from one of our original first edition roadmaps and the value that it is delivering and the vision that it's seeking to deliver on. Our plug and play work stream has been active for around 2.5 years now, and the need for plug and play technologies was originally identified in our Automated Facilities Roadmap. This was published in 2017 as one of our original roadmap chapters, and recommendations within the roadmap centred around the need for plug and play technologies and modular technologies to enable a fast response to capacity demands, to enable minimisation and efficient use of team members, to minimise time to change over between products so that we could use our facilities in a more multi-product way, and also to improve the way we make our regulatory observations. The Automated Facility Roadmap envisaged a 50% reduction in facilities build time and 50% reduction in operational costs by building on modular and plug and play technologies, as well as building on robotics and how we use our data packages. Following publication of the Automated Facilities Roadmap, the plug and play workstream was drawn together from a number of our members, both end users, biomanufacturers, contract manufacturing organisations, and also a number of partners from our automation supplier partners and process equipment supply partners. And the problem statement they formed was around the industry's increasing move towards modular facilities, where there was a risk that a lack of equipment, automation, standardization could lead to high complexity in bringing facilities online, a high degree of customization, and increasing expense and investment in new technologies. The vision of this group, therefore, is to move from that current state of customization software that fits individual facilities to a standardized, reusable approach that enables rapid integration of intelligent process skids into facilities. One of the key bottlenecks to that the team have identified is this conundrum of supply partners having sufficient technology to be able to address this, but requiring a market demand from the biomanufacturers and essentially orders in order to build it. And biomanufacturers seeking to get confidence that the products on the market will address their needs without customization. And so the Plugfest series of work, as well as the other work that the work stream is doing, is really seeking to break that cycle and bring both supply partners and biomanufacturers together to build a consensus around the new technologies to reduce risk on both sides of that equation. The Plug and Play team has 3 streams. The first is on technical and testing, and that team have been running a series of virtual proof of concepts, even over the lockdown periods, in order to continue to build piloting of the technology. The second team is on publications and specifications, and this team is taking the output from the testing teams and building it into a communications plan, but also specifications for the future that we hope will be able to build over time with our standards partners into international standards for biomanufacturing equipment. And the third team is on awareness and adoption, and this team is building a series of podcasts, of webinars, and of communications tools so that we can work with wider industry and really start to build momentum around the need for modular technologies. The benefits of modular and standard interfaces, I think, are well known, but the team have defined this in a number of different ways. The ability to allow equipment vendors to create a standard offering will reduce cost both for biomanufacturers on the investment side and for the vendors themselves in product design. Building a more robust set of rules and standards to drive equipment compatibility will increase quality by allowing an enhanced mechanism for supervisory control and again allow our system vendors to better define the needs of their technologies. This then in turn allows our integrators to configure technologies rather than customize technologies, and that very quickly leads to flexibility within facilities, allowing our end users to increase their speed and recognise a faster time to market at a lower cost. The table at the bottom of this slide has been published in Bioprocess International and reflects on the estimated time savings that the group hope to be able to realise if industry can take up the technologies that they are demonstrating. And you can see there is expected savings both in design time, in diagnosis time, in troubleshooting time, and around the use of the technology tools that we see within our facilities that mount up to be some quite substantial savings. The way this team are tackling their proof of concepts is via a series of iterative workshops that we term Plugfests. The first Plugfest happened in November 2018 and it took place in Portsmouth in the UK and was attended by a number of biomanufacturers and supply partners from our industry. During the Plugfest, 3 process automation layer providers and 3 skid suppliers were able to test their technologies by demonstrating that the DCS layer and the skid systems were able to connect and run multiple phases, focusing on bioreactors as an example. The The second Plugfest in October 2019 took place in Frankfurt in Germany, and again was able to demonstrate, focusing on use of modular technology files, that different process orchestration layers and different process equipment assemblies again were able to connect to each other using this technology. And during this Plugfest, the team confirmed their alignment with the MTP modular technology standards. At that time, of course, we needed to start moving into a virtual environment for our third Plugfest, which took place in September 2020 and enabled, again, another good number of process orchestration layer suppliers and process equipment assembly suppliers to demonstrate using the MTP services across a VPN line from facility to facility, that they could demonstrate true connectivity between their kits. And the fact that we were doing that over VPN actually made the Plugfest slightly more powerful, because we were demonstrating connectivity across a distance here as well. In this instance, the team used the stir tank unit specification that our publications team had recently published on the BioPhorum website, and you can download that from our public websites to have a look at it. And then in April 2021, the team moved on to Plugfest 4, again in a virtual environment and focusing on use of the MTP standards. This time we were able to demonstrate multiple bioreactor services on multiple process equipment assemblies. So now we're looking at multiple vendors of different types interacting together. And the beautiful thing about these Plugfest series is that our global membership of biomanufacturers are taking part in driving the requirements. Our global vendors then are actively working together to develop those recommendations into a set of real-life demonstrators. So what are the next steps for that testing strategy? Well, the team have booked themselves a further Plugfest event in October of this year, where they have the intention of moving forwards and doing more of that process equipment assembly testing with process orchestration layers. And as an output, we expect a number of new publications and specifications outlining plug-and-play requirements of the future to be published. We've already been able to publish 2 additional ones over this summer, focusing on things like validation protocols and different pieces of kit. And we're expecting further publications dealing with things like alarms and events to come later this year. The team then have an ambition to move towards more public testing so that we can build awareness within the industry and really pressure test the recommendations that they are putting together. And that again, we hope, will result in more specifications that can be used to drive formation of industry consensus standards for the future. Ultimately, of course, with the aim of enabling our vendor community to reach commercial launch with technologies that use this recommendation and that the team are referring to as MTP ready. And the role of BioPhorum in this process is to act as an unbiased facilitator during the testing process, helping our members define testing protocols and helping to make sure that the needs of all of our members are reflected in the workshops and the experiments that take place. The experiments and the workshops themselves are truly a global effort, and we would be really delighted if members from the Japanese industry would like to hear more about it and would like to join us on our journey. With that in mind, thank you for the opportunity to explain our work at Technology Roadmapping, and I'm very happy to take your questions. Thank you.